Hey everyone, this is Hanney, critical faculty. Today I've got two distinguished gentlemen joining our stream today. I think one of them is going to be his fourth time, and for the second time, I've got Thomas Sheedy of Liberty, Atheist for Liberty. First, I'd like to welcome David to the stream. How are you, David?
Good to be back again, Hanney. How you been?
Very good, very good. Thanks very much. And I'm going to add Thomas now. How are you, Thomas?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Hanney.
This is fantastic. Well, I want to start with the very last thing we spoke about, which is basically you guys have been touring around for the last few weeks, and you've started an initiative, and you were talking to me about the logistics of moving things around, spreading the good word, and promoting liberty and individual rights. But these things cost money. So I want to start with the very first thing, which is sharing your GoFundMe page. And I would like you, Thomas, to please have a word about it.
Sure. So I'm the president of an organization called Atheist for Liberty. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We care about free speech, free thinking, and freedom for all. We're basically anti-woke atheists going around the country, numerous political events across the United States, advocating for individual liberty, advocating for secularism, advocating for the rights of atheists. And we've been doing that very successfully since the beginning of 2020. The problem is that when you go to so many of these conferences, you end up draining quite a bit of resources. You have to ship materials. You have to manage people. You have to make sure that you have people's hotels covered, people's flights. And it takes resources. It takes money. And we're going to quite a bit of conferences for the rest of the span of 2021. We're going to be going to an event in Nashville, Tennessee called Free Your Future Fest. It's put on by Students for Liberty. We're going to Mythicist Milwaukee's Better Discourse 3. They started out originally as an atheist conference years ago, but then they got into politics because the atheist movement died due to social justice wackos. And then the third event is Turning Point USA's new America Fest convention, which is going to be very massive in Phoenix, Arizona in December. And we're going to be there as proud, patriotic atheists fighting for the same mission we always have for many years as atheist activists. And we need your help. We need your help to make all this stuff possible. Because the more help we get, the more financial support we receive, the more we can go out of our way to care about our mission and to spread our ideals with as many resources as possible. And all donations, by the way, to this GoFundMe link, it's in the description below in this stream, everybody. All donations are tax deductible. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. So we'd appreciate any support that you can give to us. And let's get the show on the road.
I'm going to jump in just for a moment and talk a little bit about what these appearances do. Okay. Because before I don't want people to have the idea that these things that Atheists for Liberty are going to, these events that Atheists for Liberty are going to, are window dressing. In other places, they are window dressing. When I was running American Atheists, we would go to things like Netroots Nation. We would go to liberal events, and we would be there too, right? The changes that we could affect at those events were, quite frankly, pretty negligible because we were just there with everybody else. We were among friends. This is before the culture war 2.0 happened. So it was all about, the left was the secular. And so that wasn't much of a thing. 2014, I started to go to CPAC. I went to CPAC for the first time. And a lot of people have heard this story before. I'll be brief. I went to CPAC. Originally, I was the president of American Atheists. And originally, we purchased a booth. They gave us our money back because they didn't want the atheists to have a booth. So I purchased our ticket. And I stood in the middle of the hallway, CNN filming me in the background, handing out flyers. And that was my activism. The next year, they gave me a booth because of all of the uproar I caused. The next year, the uproar was even lessened. And now this past year, we went to CPAC. It was, when we went to CPAC, the atmosphere was wonderful. Very, very welcoming, crazy welcoming, a huge change from when I first sat in that booth in 2015. When I first got that booth, everybody was yelling at me and challenging us and in my face. So what are we doing when we go to these things? We're not showing up for the people who are there. Okay. First of all, the main target, of course, is the press, but also the real decision makers are there. Okay. When we went to the Freedom Fest, Larry Elder was there. Larry Sharp was there. They came over. Larry Sharp came over and talked to us. We are influencing influencers, and the influencers are changing the way it happens. And that's what happened at CPAC. At CPAC, I gave away atheist voter stickers. I'm sorry, conservative atheist stickers. I went there with a big barrel of them, gave them all away. They were everywhere. That sent a message to the people who make decisions who were at the conventions. And so this is what we're doing. This is part of the strategy. It's not about sending a bunch of people to go have fun at a convention. These people are doing work. And more importantly, and I've been there along with them, they are achieving goals. They are making changes happen because of their presence. We're not talking about bringing atheism to some place where atheism already is. We're talking about entrenching atheism, any progress that we've made, making further progress in as we go through this turmoil. Okay. I just go off on a little bit of a tangent here. The atheist movement has pretty much disintegrated. Okay. And Thomas and Atheists for Liberty is the only one left doing the important work. Okay. Bringing atheism to where atheism isn't, entrenching, infiltrating the stuff that movements are made of. It's only being done by Thomas and his team. And that's why I'm really supportive of him, because this is the stuff. I mean, it's not about "In God We Trust" lawsuits anymore. It's not about the 10 Commandments on public lawn. It's about where will atheism be as this country goes through the turmoil that it's going through. Where will atheism be in conservatism? Where will atheism be in libertarianism? We have a choice. We can let that happen with us or without us. Okay. And I think with us is a lot better. And that's why I really, really hope that we can, have a great show. But in the end, I really, really hope that we can raise the money that this small fledgling nonprofit, to which I'm a life member, and to which I personally donate. If we can get these folks doing this work, keep them going, keep them doing it. I think it's important work, and I hope we can make it happen. So thanks for listening to me rant.
It was a great rant, Dave. Thank you. That was awesome.
I just wanted to ask, a few years ago, I've seen a poll where atheists were the least trusted segments of people in the United States, and the prediction that a future atheist president would be sort of a very far-reach goal. Do you think in the last few years, and this is to Thomas, obviously being on the ground, and obviously you're the younger generation now of activism, how do you see that? Is this changing, or is it still the same?
It's greatly changing. The fact is, in the United States of America right now, due to the success of the atheist movement years ago, we have something in Washington called the Congressional Free Thought Caucus. It's made up of numerous members of the United States House of Representatives, around 20 people, and numerous other members of Congress that are all in the closet. But the problem is that while we've made many strides in now having open atheists in Congress, they're all just part of one political ideology, one political camp. And the problem then is that if we're really trying to normalize secularism and normalize atheism in the United States, so many normal people in the center, so many Americans left and right, on the coast, in the middle of the country, they will see atheism as a partisan issue, as a partisan identity. And that's the problem. If we're really trying to make the case that you could be a good person, a good moral person, be an atheist, normalize the idea that being an atheist is a good person, they can't all be progressive, woke people of one particular party. That's really, really, really bad optics. And it's a big mistake that the atheist movement made. And it's a mistake that the mainstream movement, or what's left of it, because it's pretty much dead, a ghost of its former self, is making, because they hold on to a religion in and of itself.
Yeah.
Just a new one. But it's becoming increasingly more possible to become an atheist, to be an atheist in office. And all we're trying to do is say, let's complete the mission. We're staying on mission that the new atheists were in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, in the 2010s. Dave is an old veteran of that movement and that community. And they were so desperate to just get any politician in local office, state office, federal office to support them. I bet they didn't care in the 90s and 2000s what party that atheist was. And we hold that same mentality. We hold that same style of professionalism. We're continuing that mission, and we're going to make it possible soon in a few years for you to be part of any political party anywhere on the left and the right in the United States and be an atheist and run for office and win and succeed.
This one is for David, but I think I'll take all opinions on the table here on this one here. It's evident. We know that minorities have suffered in the past. We talk about blacks, women, people of different sexual orientation,
Ashkenazi Jews,
everyone who seemed a little bit different
yeah,
back then was discriminated against. Fair play. I understand that completely. Positive discrimination. All right. Okay. Well, it's, you give somebody a push to get where they need to be. But at what stage you let go and say, okay, right now you're on your own. It's equal playing field now, and right now it's your credentials, it's your capabilities that will win the day. It's not going to be your gender, it's not going to be your color, it's not going to be anything other than what you bring to the table. Do you think that the left and wokeism has taken this far too long, and they don't want to let go because it plays on an emotions?
No, I don't think that's the reason. It's a loaded question. But this is about a generation of children who had helicopter parents. This is about a generation of people who were never told, sit the fuck down, shut the fuck up, and study until you get A's. If you don't get A's, you don't get what you want. I got that. But the next generation didn't get that. Okay. And what we've got is a lot of people who are subconsciously doomed to, we all know it. They're doomed to failure because they don't know what they're talking about, because they didn't study hard in school, or they took a major in gender studies or X studies or Judaic studies or whatever. They have a useless degree, and they're going to get a fucking job at Starbucks like a dropout. And it's the ego that's hitting them. Okay. The reality is hitting them that they don't have a lot to add. And so wokeism gives them something to add. It gives them a place to say, I'm superior than you. It gives them a step up. And so it surrounds them with people who will never tell them that they're wrong. It surrounds them with people who think words are violence, right? So, I mean, again,
do you reckon it's like a shield to hide incompetence?
It's absolutely a shield. It's absolutely a shield, but it's a stupid shield, right? Because I mean, how many times I can think of 3 or 4 times in my life when a friend of mine has cornered me and said, "You're being stupid right now. You need to shut the fuck up, sit the fuck down, and listen." Or shut the fuck up, sit the fuck down, and go to sleep, or whatever. This is violence. Thomas says, has that ever happened to you?
Oh, it's happened to me. In fact, I wanted to tell a story about this. So I'm part of that generation. Yeah. I am part of early Generation Z. I was born in 1998, so I'm right at the cusp of that. I'm a 9/11 generation child, and I grew up in that helicopter parent setting where I was never actually given much responsibility. And throughout my teenage years and throughout my tweens, I kind of had to learn things the hard way. So I was always an activist. I was always a social advocate for change and for numerous things. And when I was in high school, I joined a club called the Gay Straight Alliance, because I saw I was a big advocate for gay marriage and the separation between church and state. And even though I wanted to start a secular student alliance, an atheist club at my high school, there wasn't any at the time. And so the Gay Straight Alliance was the closest thing that it was. And so I joined the Gay Straight Alliance as a straight ally. Gay marriage was still not legalized yet in the United States fully. Oberfeld v. Hodges was still not a thing yet. And so I joined this club. I wanted to get involved in activism to any degree in politics whatsoever, and the GSA was close to it. And I remember seeing so many kids, so many children between the ages of 15 to 18 years old, who were maybe mistreated by others in school. They might have been bullied. Maybe they had bad parents, and their upbringing just sucked. It sucked. And they ended up like acting quite weird, honestly, within the club, stating things and stating concepts that belong in a gender studies classroom. Some of the most extreme ideals. But at the time, I tolerated it. I made many friends in that club, and there are many good friends who I still support to this day. And this does not constitute everybody who was in there. But there were quite a few people who believed in ludicrous concepts, and I tolerated it. Why did I tolerate it? Because I had some sympathy for these people who were being bullied, who were being oppressed. And I thought, okay, once they get out of high school, they go to college, they get into the real world. They'd have to grow the hell up, and they'd have to either get a job or do well in school or do activism in a way that the majority of regular people would actually understand. And a lot of these people, when I started going to community college and later university, I realized that this gender studies, play place, safe space mentality of the Gay Straight Alliance Club that I thought was only confined to my high school was everywhere in society.
Oh, yeah.
It was on every single college campus. And then these people, when they graduated college, ended up putting this ideology into the workplace, putting this ideology into society, shitting it everywhere. And it was based on the fact that these people were never really told to grow up. When you get into the real world, no one actually cares what your sexual orientation is. No. If you're not involved in the culture war and the internet and politics, normal people in your American town, they don't care what color you are. They don't care if you like men or if you like women. But these kids, and I went to a very, very wealthy public school district, they thought they were so entitled. They thought they were the biggest victims ever. And I did hold some sympathies with them, and we did fight for some things together, but it wasn't as bad as some of them thought it was. And then they just started spewing that crap in the universities. And I thought it was just confined to my little club. I really woke up. I really woke up once I left high school and realized, wow, our civilization is at stake. If we're changing the dictionary, if we're changing how we function as normal people in a functional liberal society for this madness.
I'm just gonna.
It is a generational issue.
Yeah, Thomas, I'm gonna share something, and I'll let both of you comment. And this is my real foundational arguments between the way you approach a defense, and particularly within wokeism. Both sort of right and left could be defending the same thing. I'm talking about right in terms of scientifically grounded, like yourself, Thomas. So you could be fighting for the rights of minorities, and let's talk about blacks. Mm-hmm. The left will go from it. You use the angle of what I call the fallacy of low expectations. Would be
the racism of low expectations.
Yeah, come on, guys. They wouldn't know any better. You gotta be nice to these folks, while the scientifically grounded person will be defending the rights based on there's no such thing as races, guys. It's one human race. These variations happen because of environmental changes in different spots on Earth. So this is the same race. It's just a human race, and so from that angle, you'll defend it from a scientifically grounded sort of angle, as opposed to the woke who would say, "Hey, come on, cut them some slack," sort of thing. It's like feeling sorry.
The woke are ignorant, and the woke are ignorant. Okay, they haven't done their reading. That's the problem with wokeism. They haven't done their reading. They don't understand that this is not a problem with racism. There is nothing stopping the black race from succeeding in America. There is, however, a lot stopping the African American population from succeeding in America, and that is 100% the problem of the African American population. It is 100% from the African American community. It is 0% white oppression, 0% history oppression, 0% I can't do it because I'm black. It is 100% this toxic these toxic sections of the African American community that teach their children that education is race treason, that criminals are victims of cops, that speaking eloquently is talking white, and then they say what when the kids fail in school and they blame racism, because again, it's the same thing. It's the same victimhood. Okay, it's the same victimhood, and woke victimhood and African American victimhood, I believe, are closely related. Okay, and the remember, because the woke thrive to be heroes. They're white knights. Okay, they're not about you're hurting me. They're all about you're hurting other people. Okay, and in this case, it's the poor, defenseless, inferior Black people who apparently can't be bothered, shouldn't be held to the same standard as everybody else. They need to it's their culture to be late. It's their culture to not get an education. It's their what the fuck? How in the world is that helping anybody? How in the world is that helping Black lives? How in the world, if we are to be a nation where we support each other, how are we white people, Jewish, white, whatever we are, supporting the Black community by saying, you're right, there's nothing wrong with your community, it's all us, while that community is obviously so fucking toxic that it's eating itself alive? We are doing those people, those wonderful people, no favors by mincing our words. This is toxic shit, and it's 100% their problem. It's not racial. Their genetics are fine. They're making decisions, fucked up, dumbass, stupid, toxic decisions that they need to be called out on by their white friends en masse.
This reminds me, Dave, of that delusional singer on American Idol, whose voice is horrible, and he goes, "My mother and all my friends reckon I'm a great singer," and Simon Cowell obviously shocks him and say, "You suck. Go do something else."
And look, I'm not saying the entire African American community sucks. I'm not saying that the culture sucks. I'm saying it's got some really fucking toxic aspects, and it's 100% their responsibility to fix it. And it's 100% our responsibility to tell them that it's 100% their responsibility to fix it, because that's the only way it will get fixed. And that's the only way the number one killer of Black people will stop being Black people. That's the only way. Kids will actually, how many Black kids will start staying up all night in school studying like the Asians? What do you think will happen if that happens? Like the Jews, how many times did I stay up all night studying between high school, college, and grad school? Got to be dozens of times. Got to be dozens.
And this one for Thomas. Thomas, we've seen cultures who've been completely sort of victimized or had a really tough. The Jews.
Yeah.
Sort of rose above it. Japan in recent history, after the Second World War, they were flattened.
Having to rebuild.
But not just that. Yeah. Look at the relationship between them and the U.S. Probably one of the strongest trade lanes ever. So they don't feel sort of hard on by the Japanese.
Yeah, they're one of our strongest allies. I also want to add on real quick to Dave. Don't you love it, Dave? When after you say all this stuff in a very logical sense, where you're saying, I'm not racist. I actually love the African American community, but they have problems that they need to fix. Don't you love it when our boomer progressive friends then spam our comments and say, wait, Dave, all we want is to end racism. Aren't you against racism too? These people don't even get it. Like they haven't been to college in like 40 years, and then they see the stuff that we have to deal with, the material that we have to read to know what we're fighting, and we get attacked by our former friends.
And I gotta jump in. I know Thomas. This question was to you. Okay, this question was to you. I'm jumping in the fuck anyway.
Oh, please,
because I want to talk about history.
This is great.
I want to talk about history. Okay, I want to talk about persecution. Okay, I want you to look at my face. My face, how many times have I been told I look like Jeff Goldblum? Okay, how many times have I been told I look just like Sarah Silverman, a person who shares my last name and my exact face? Okay, and we're not related at all. It's because I am a member of a race that was literally born of hate. I am a member of a race that was born because the religious Jews were herded like cattle and forced into everything that you could possibly imagine, including genocide after genocide situation, the pogroms, the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, and the Holocaust over millennia, 4,000 years, long enough for my race to form. Okay? That's a lot of oppression. My father was born with cardboard shoes on his feet. He told stories about he was born in the Depression. He had cardboard shoes. When he was trying to buy a house in the 1960s, he was redlined. He was told no Jews here. He was forced into a different area. And still, I was able to study in college. The Holocaust happened, and still, I was able to wear a condom when I had sex. The pogroms happened, and still, I didn't tell my kid that education was bad for them. It's my decisions, not the history. And I'm so fucking tired of people, especially white people, saying, oh, but the African-American population has had such a history. Nah, they've had a small bad history. If you want to know about a history of persecution, look this way. And what does it do to me? Well, my culture, our adults make decisions that have actually nothing to do with people getting killed 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago. I'm making my own decisions, just like every person in the African-American community is making today. Every time a member of the African-American community decides to have sex without a condom, that has zero fucking thing to do with anything but his brain. This is not white oppression. It's not racism. It's him making a decision. And that's
it's not a consequence.
So I completely and wholeheartedly reject this asinine idea that, oh, they've had it so hard. Fuck that noise. I've had it worse. My people have had it way worse than the African American person. Okay, the Ashkenazi Jew has had it way worse over history than the black person. Okay, 400 years of oppression is bad. 400 years of slavery and oppression is bad. It ain't genocide, though. Okay? It ain't genocide. It ain't genocide after genocide after genocide over millennia. And so, cry me a river, folks. Stand up and put on a condom and study hard like I did. You'll be fine. There's actually nothing stopping you. And we are doing them no favors when we coddle them without this language. We have to use these words, folks. We have to get them to stand up because they can. They're just choosing not to.
So you got the choice of being a grocery shop mugger or Neil deGrasse Tyson, probably with the help of a bit of IQ points. But I agree. At some point, and it's people don't understand. You remember Christopher Hitchens? We always said, what's the cure for poverty? And he always said, it's the empowerment of women, 50% of your population. These minorities constitute large amount of people in the human population. By suppressing them, we're holding ourselves back. These are people that will contribute to everything we do. By putting large amount of people down, we know in history what does that do it will actually hold everyone back. We want to empower everyone.
And they're disempowering themselves with their own toxicity. And I feel so much compassion for these unknown, unspoken, wonderful, poor Black folks living in these communities, just trying to have a life and not get shot and live, and thrive. And I just think about the children being born and they're being told. I mean, can you imagine what it's like being born broke and Black, and then on top of it, told the system is stacked against you,
and you won't get anywhere.
Told education is race treason, so you really shouldn't try. Told eloquence is race betrayal, talking white. Told criminals are victims of white people. What is going to happen to these children? I mean, there's a place where parents have their authority, but I mean, there's a place where you have to start saying, okay, you have responsibility here. And I'll tell you another story I did. And this is far from exhaustive, but I've mentioned this on a couple podcasts, and nobody's combated me. And if anybody can tell me where I'm full of shit on this point, I really, really would love to hear it. Because there was a time about a year ago when I worked for a private foundation, and we looked for places to donate money. And I got on this particular subject kick, and I started looking for any nonprofit organization that in any way promotes the value of education in the African American community. Somebody said United Negro College Fund. I haven't seen them doing any advertising for a long time, but maybe they're just advertising where I'm not watching. But I want to know if there's any organization anywhere in the country, because I believe the answer is zero. I believe the answer is no. I believe there is no organization in this country that promotes the value of education in the African American community. I believe there is none. I believe there's lots of organizations that promote the scholarships that you can get and the gifts that you can get and the things that you can get if you're a Black kid to excel. And that's great. But I believe that there is no organization in the country that promotes the value of education to the African American community. And I think that is disgusting. And I think that needs to change. As an activist, as a former activist, I mean, if there is not a huge unmet need there, I don't know what is. And I hope I'm wrong, but I don't believe I am. Can you imagine in the place where the number one problem is kids don't, well, I don't know if it's the number one problem, where a huge problem is kids aren't succeeding in school. And one factor is kids are being told education is bad. Do you think somebody might think we should tell our kids education is good? I haven't seen it, and I looked. I didn't look for hours and hours, but I looked for minutes and minutes, and I found nothing. Would love to be proven wrong.
I've interviewed here, and this one is going to go to Thomas now in a second. Mandisa, she's I believe she's the president of Black Non-Believers.
Black Non-Believers.
Yeah. And we had a good conversation about a couple of things, and maybe there are some attempts here and there, but one thing, and I want to sort of share or get Thomas's opinion on this one here, because for some reason minorities perceive the efforts from the majorities, or let's say the whites, of involving them is by whitewashing them. It's like, you got to lose your culture to join in and be white, be white. And what we're actually, I'm thinking, is completely the opposite. Bring the best of your culture, bring your food, bring your cuisine, bring your music. I love. I mean, I hate to say that, but it sounds.
You don't have to be white. You have to be smart and productive. Nobody gives a fuck what color you are.
No.
I've been in the workforce for a long time. Just be productive and good.
Yeah.
That's all that anybody cares about. Be nice too. That would be cool.
And not only that, let's talk about the atheist community for a second. So I've been involved in the atheist movement to one degree or another since 2014. Okay. I've been to I've watched endless amounts of hours on YouTube of shows and podcasts. I've been a part of numerous different organizations. I have been to so many conferences. I went to the Second Reason rally, the one that sucked, by the way, compared to the one that Dave organized. Dave, let me ask you a question. I lead an atheist organization now. You used to lead an atheist organization. You were in atheist organizations for 20 years. Was there ever a moment where in our own orgs we said, sorry, Black person, can't come in. You can't come into this conference. The outfit, get a suit and tie, buddy. You can't come into this venue to learn about science. You got to take that off, buddy.
Okay.
You got to take that off. It's asinine. We have never seen it.
It's asinine. It's asinine. And the bar has been lowered so far that being completely inclusive and treating everybody equally is now considered racist.
Yeah.
Because you're allowing those those inferior black people to compete with the whites and Asians on an even playing field and expecting them to perform. Holy shit, what a racist you are.
I know.
It's asinine. I mean, for people to okay, so let's just say it. In 25 years of activism, I never saw any racism against black people. I did experience firsthand anti-Semitism in the atheist movement, but I didn't see any hint of anti-black racism. I saw a lot of anti-Muslim prejudice, but that was the conflation of race and religion, Islam and Arab. But
that was the famous Bill Maher and the infamous Bill Maher and Ben Affleck conversation.
Racist. I mean, and when I was working at AT&T, I saw zero racism in the 9 years I was there. Zero, literally zero. Like nobody said, "Oh, well, I'm going to hire somebody," but oh no, he's black, I'm not going to do it. That's not a real thing. Okay, I faced it. I've actually faced actual racism, actual discrimination. You know, when I was running for president of American Atheists, I don't know if I ever told you this, Thomas. There was a discussion about me having a Jewish wife and being a Jew, and would my presidency forward the concept of the Jewish takeover of atheism? That was actual bigotry that was in the discussion of my hiring. Okay, that was there at the board level of American Atheists.
I did read up in the 70s when Madalyn Murray O'Hair was the head of American Atheists. There was controversy apparently about that Madalyn Murray O'Hair might have been anti-Semitic, or her children might have been anti-Semitic when it came to dealing with other atheist groups and organizations. I know there was a big rift then.
She changed over time, I believe. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you this: even in her very beginning, she was never anti-black.
Yeah, in fact, she actually started American Atheists and built up on American Atheists during the Civil Rights Movement.
Yeah.
So, and also I'll say this about Mandisa Thomas. Look, I've met Mandisa Thomas.
Tom. Hi, Will. Nice to see you.
Yeah, but I mean, and this is the point we're trying to make, guys. Okay, well, fair enough. Okay, that's what he thinks of you. We would like to have an argument. Why? Why do you think so?
Why do I think what?
I mean, there is a comment in here that's been made. It's on the screen here. Somebody's actually opposing your opinions and ideas.
Oh, yeah, but he's vapid. He talks like this all the time. I know
what I'm saying. I would like to know why. Why does he think so?
Apparently, I'm also disingenuous, and that I don't have any actual real views and will do anything for personal gain. Thanks, Will, by the way.
It's crazy how you can be demonized by people who don't want to put in the effort to understand. Okay, the tribalism is important, and I've been a tribalist. Okay, I've been there, and I know that pit in your stomach that you feel when you're doing something wrong, but the tribe says to do it, so you do it anyways. And a lot of people live there, and so they lob these insults. We were talking earlier about the people who are on my Facebook page who are friends. I believe Will is one of them, who just throw shit at me all the time. And the reason I leave them on is because I want to be at least some non-echo chamber in their lives. That's why I don't block all the people that throw shit at me on my Facebook page. I hope they read. I hope they listen. And yes, I mean, absolutely, positively, I am open to being wrong as well. I would love to be wrong. But what you'll see from some of these people is a whole lot of insults, but not a lot of, hey, Dave, you're wrong here. And this is why you're wrong. It's a matter of
because it's quite easy to reach the intent. You can go, hey, this is your intent. What about the actual argument?
Yeah,
because there's a fallacy.
You can say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that," and you're just one of those. And we have to get. I mean, this is a regression. Okay, when people talk about the regressive left, this is the regression. We have to move forward past this back to the point where we can have an intellectual, fact-based discussion between two people who mean well and want to solve a problem. Okay, it's not between you and Hitler. It's not between you and a racist. It's between you and somebody who is good and smart and may be right and may be wrong. And you are also good and smart and may be right and may be wrong. And let's look at the data and let's find the solution. It's not about that anymore. It's about tribalism. And like I said, I don't mean I can judge tribalism as having come out of it, but but I mean, I was a tribalist too. Okay, so I'm not judging them as people, but tribalism kills discourse. Tribalism kills discussion. Tribalism kills information.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to also state here, let's be clear. It wasn't our side. It's not the people, that are associated with us now that are saying, oh, we're never going to have discussions. We're never going to engage. I have spent years and years and years creating these massive threads on Facebook. I was friends with nearly every head of the atheist community at the time throughout the United States and several different countries, trying to promote the idea that the movement, we should all get back together, that the social justice conflict and the infighting that split us apart was a waste of time, and that we should fight together for a separation between church and state. We can agree to disagree. We can have discussions about those disagreements, but overall, we're not racist, we're not sexist, we're not bigots, we're not homophobes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we need to fight back against religious dogmatism that is plaguing the world. I've made numerous threads, spent my entire teenage years, instead of getting a job as a teenager, instead of working more on my personal relationships, I spent years and years and years in this movement. And what was I treated with in many aspects from these so-called free thinkers? Contempt. Unfriendings, people not respecting me. So I actually had the mentality for many years that I'll keep these people on my friends list, actually. Even if I make controversial threads, even if they spam my comments and call me a bigot, call me a racist, whatever, I'll tolerate it. I've changed my mind recently, because on my personal Facebook profile, if you are friends with me and you claim to be my friend, claim to be someone who respects me, and you call me a racist, you call me a bigot, you say I'm disingenuous, you say I'm not genuine with any of my views. I'm not a grifter, by the way, for anybody who says that. I've clarified a lot of the stuff on Hanney's show and a lot of other shows. Then no, you shouldn't be my friend. You are not my friend. You can debate me as an enemy or an adversary or someone who disagrees with me on my public pages. But if someone who claims to be my friend continuously goes after me and attacks me and never comments on anything positive that I do anymore, at this point, no, you're not my friend, and I don't even want to be associated with you on a friendship level basis, because I've dealt with years and years and years of that abuse online from so-called free thinkers in the atheist community. We got your back, Thomas. You're such a great young kid. Bull crap. Absolute bull crap. And one of those comments from good old Will there shows it quite well. Hi, Will.
Well, he yet to present us with an argument, but I've got not the $1 million question. I've got the $10 question for David here, who's doing Elon Musk at the moment. I'm just gonna give you a bit of a background, and maybe David, you can let rip whenever you're ready. But groups of people getting together, let's say playing a sport, Real Madrid, putting on that white jersey and playing for soccer, Real Madrid, you got your spectators, is a great thing. But once that group of people start to sort of gather a bit of a dogma and a bit of an exclusive that you can't get in unless, do you see tribalism, tribalism, nationalism, all these sort of things are inherently religious or dogmatic? Because I think even religion will fall under dogma. Do you think there's something sinister once certain complications happen in the system?
So it's a combination of tribalism and greed, right? There's also greed. Greed for money, greed for power. And so when you've got this base, tribalism is the base. Okay, tribalism is not fundamentally religious. Religion is fundamentally tribal, and nationalism is also fundamentally tribal. And anything that gets to the point, it's not just yay. For me, there's a line between we're number one and you're number two. Okay, there's a line there when you talk
and
about,
you suck probably. Yeah, we're number
when you
one.
talk
and
about
suck.
the people putting on the uniforms and playing a sports team. There's a great big difference between we're yay us and boo you. And when it becomes boo you, it becomes tribalism. The tribalism becomes negative and becomes toxic. And that always is. I mean, I believe it may be inevitable. I mean, I think it may be inevitable. And then greed comes in, and greed for money, greed for power. I mean, it's the best way to use that power to get power. Those people are doing bad is the best way to unify people under you. So I believe that the tribalism cycle, because greed may be inherently toxic. Yeah, I think that's your question.
Well, there's something genetic in our evolution about the word xenophobia, which literally translates to fear from strangers or of strangers. And it was actually quite beneficiary then, just like the rustling of in the trees, the pareidolia of seeing faces and everything. These things have saved us at the beginning. Tribalism probably saved us at some point, because if there's a strange-looking people trying to sort of compete on that spring of fresh water, they probably want to kill you and take your position. We're talking thousands of years ago. So at some point that was good to be afraid of those who don't look like you. But as we know now, taking Darwinian evolution into social aspects of living is no longer good. So lots of things that we need to get rid of, that sort of vestigial baggage from our past. I think we need to evolve beyond that. So tribalism, could it be at some point dropped because of our human maturity? Are we going to mature ever beyond that point?
I think you're asking us to evolve beyond seeing faces in clouds. Are we ever going to be able to say to not do the us versus them? I don't know. I don't know. That's a real hard question. I do feel like it's genetically encoded. I don't have any science behind that. I don't know I don't know for sure, but I mean, I do feel like it's kind of objectively true in the human psyche form that there's an us versus them mentality.
Even for us.
Even if us is just me. But if there's a tribe, I kind of feel like it's hardwired. I wish I knew the answer to that. I don't have an answer for that, but I think so. I think it's permanent, and I think it's going to be a never-ending toxic cycle for humanity.
You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe if we can't get rid of it, can we channel it?
Yeah.
Can we, make it positive? Make it like we can compete in good spirit and good sport and
you can be positive with your tribalism. You can be positive with your tribalism. You can be a good person. I mean, and I think
always try to do your best.
Yeah, I mean, you can channel everything, and you can be aware of it, and you can use it for positivity as long as you can. And I mean, in a science fiction type of setting, the tribalism could be the entire human race against the aliens, right? And then we're unified. So it's all a matter of who the other is, and how broad the us can be made.
It is complex indeed. It is very complex, but okay.
And nuanced. It's really nuanced.
Yeah. But away from racism, because there are a few other things that are sort of play on it. What about like the issues of transgenders at the moment and genders, and females have been always, or been for so long, been oppressed by men. We knew that. The Abrahamic religions are very masculine, and you can tell it's written by a man. God is a man. We've done ourselves no favors, but we're heading to an era where it is going to maybe flip? Is it going to flip because we feel so guilty about what we've done, and now we are again overcompensating, and we're going to end up hurting ourselves again in the process?
Well, again, this is an issue of helicopter parenting and telling people no. This is an issue when you're talking about trans issues. What is it about? It's an issue about telling trans women they're not 100% women in one way or another. That's the issue. It's about what will their feelings be if you tell them no. They take it and they say, oh, you're taking away their humanity. They extrapolate it like that to make it so bad to tell them no. And so they use the same guilt as the African American community is using to make claims that are simply false. Okay,
Social justice nonsense.
It's nonsense. I mean, to say that gender is to say that sex is a spectrum is blindly ignorant.
And not only that,
the only reason they're doing that, I'll let you talk in a second, Thomas. The only reason we're having this discussion about whether or not sex is dimorphic is because you can't have people who say, all right, well, there's an actual difference between cis women and straight and trans women. That's what it is. They're trying to make it the same so that they don't have to say the truth to the poor, inferior trans women who can't handle the truth. Okay, good.
Notice how the bar has gone so far ahead. It used to be, let me be trans, make sure I don't get bullied, make sure I don't get oppressed in school. Then it turned into, you should be able to have trans, hormones and even potential surgeries for children. For people that are young who might not even know what they are. A lot of times, for example, a lot of women used to simply be considered tomboys if they liked masculine things back then, or played with action figures and not with dolls. Now, in many progressive areas, they're considered to be men. Oh, you must be transgender. Oh, we must get you on hormones. You probably have gender dysphoria. Then it went into there's no such thing as gender itself. Everything is binary. I can go from being a man to a woman, back to a man, back to a woman, whenever I feel like it. And if you dare question it, then you are a bigot. And then I'm going to get all of my friends to spam your comments and to show how bigoted you are, even though half of you don't actually think that way, but are just afraid of speaking out on it to save your career.
Yep.
And I think we have to refer to science again. This is not a conversation. So we understand that gender is different than sex, is different than sexual orientation. Some of them have spectrums. Sexual orientation, indeed, is not binary. It has to be a spectrum. We know that scientifically, but science needs to have a say here. It's not up to people to sort of fluff something up on air and say, well, I think this is the case. I think this is where science and psychologists and neurologists and looking at brains and look at the science of things. But you're right. There are certain things where there's the pure pressure of the culture we're living in. If I suppress my Tom girl and maybe she's I want to be seen as a modern parent. Being, seen, I live in a nice suburb and I want to be seen as a modern parent, and I might be under that peer pressure to do something that I might regret later. So I think science has got to have a good say here. So a person who's about to change their gender, I think they need to go into a rigorous sort of examination by proper specialists and understand what is not just the
not be a child.
Yes.
Not have a not yet developed brain.
Yes. Yeah. But it's not. That's not saying that these things, because there are other people saying there's no such thing as transgender. People who do that are always going to be wrong. That's not what we're saying. We're saying on occasions this could be confused, and you got to be careful because you could be ruining somebody's life.
Oh, and let's also take the other side of this. Okay. Men do lie about being trans in order to do stuff that trans women can do. This happens, okay? It's happening in the prison system. It's happening, Jessica Yaniv comes to mind. There are billions of people on this planet. Okay. So there are 7 billion people on this planet. Half of them are men. So that's 3.5 billion. And that's a lot of people. So even if you take a small percent of men who are going to be sick enough and twisted enough, but very, very willing to, maybe it's 1%, to lie about being trans in order to get special treatment, like go to a women's prison or compete in a team against women so they can compete against women and win a gold medal. A percentage will do that. To say that that percentage is zero is asinine, especially when we're talking about hundreds of millions of people. That means many, many, many people are going to fall in this situation. And that means we have to actually speak like adults and have a place where we can judge it. If somebody is, there's got to be a line. There's got to be a test. There's got to be more than I'm trans. I'm pretending. There's got to be something more than somebody who can pretend and do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You've got to have some sort of documentation that you've got gender dysphoria.
Something medical.
Something other than something that looks exactly like a liar. Okay, because liars exist and they do things for that. And you know what? We can pretend that doesn't exist, but it's not true. And people are going to get hurt. And if the trans community can't handle that, then that's the trans community's time to toughen the fuck up, because it's true. And we have to work together as a community with truth so that we can all have good rights, fair rights. And yes, sometimes our rights trample each other. And sometimes we bump into each other. Okay. And we're going to have to deal with that on an individual level. We're going to have to deal with that with people. It is life. You're going to be told no sometimes. Get the fuck over it and move on. I mean, I had a friend, a female friend once who'd been raped many times, and she used to go to women's spas. And she was a good person. She was not a transphobe, but she'd been injured real hard, real bad. And she really needed, in her opinion, to go to a place where there were only females. And for her to see a stereotypical hairy penised trans woman walking around naked in a spa like that, you've got to see her side of the story. You've got to see both her side of the story. There's two sides of this story. The trans woman wants to come in, walk around naked in a women's spa. The cis woman wants a female-only place because she's had real issues, and a whole bunch of women have, from real bad men. It's completely reasonable as a guy that women would want a women-only space, a female-only space. Okay, that seems reasonable to me, given the fact that so many of them are sexually assaulted and or raped. It makes sense. And so both sides make sense. Okay? And so both sides are clashing, and I don't have an answer. But I do know that the answer is not my way is the only way, and if you don't believe it, you're a transphobe.
I was going to say, David,
you're an asshole. That's not the answer. Okay?
There's a reason why facts don't care about your feelings has become such a popular slogan, how people left and right took that Shapiro quote and took it very seriously, because we've been operating under people just feeling a certain way, and then we just don't want to feel bad. So we're going to change our language. We're going to change the entire apparatus of public policy in every Western country to appease you because you're a victim.
Because
we have to waste our time for you.
Because helicopter parenting. The coddling of the American mind, Greg Lucan.
Because of the GSA kids going to college and changing everything based on their feelings.
We've got a question for all three of us here. I'll let you tackle it in a second, but I just want to highlight one thing here. Notice within our conversation today, one thing that never happened, which is a question has been canceled because it was a taboo or too difficult to get into. And that is exactly what we're trying to say today. Once you start this conversation by saying, you can't say that, or you can't think about that, or you stop the conversation.
Yeah.
I could be proven wrong. And I would like sometimes to be, but let's have a conversation. You might convince me. But the moment you say, shut up, you're hurting somebody's feeling, or shut up, that's racist, you've stopped the conversation.
You don't get to have that opinion. You are the wrong color, the wrong race, the wrong sex. Zip it. You don't get to talk about it.
And you know what happened to Richard Dawkins, obviously.
You are.
Yeah, he lost his Humanist of the Year award.
Before we tackle this question on screen here, have you guys watched the Ben Shapiro, Neil deGrasse Tyson conversation about transgenders?
I've not.
I watched a few seconds of it, but I need to rewatch the whole thing.
You got to watch that. Maybe we'll talk about it later because that was quite interesting.
Have us on again. We should come on again. This would be fun.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question for all three of us, and maybe Thomas, you'll go first on this one.
Does the argument for LGBTQ plus rights inevitably lead to Desmond is amazing gender reassignment for 4-year-olds? This question is for everyone. Yes and no. If you use the same premise that, oh, you don't want to be a bigot, you don't want to be backwards, you don't want to be part of the previous generation and their values, come on board on my train and fight for what is the progressive thing now. Yes, you could use that argument to push for just about anything, and we're seeing that. I will admit there is a slippery slope. You can have, we did see this go from same-sex marriage, which I'm absolutely for. It is something I absolutely fought for, to there's no such thing as gender anymore. You can go from man to woman to man to woman. Let's have gender reassignment surgeries for 4-year-olds. It really was a slippery slope, and it really went too quickly. The problem that I have, and this is a problem I do have with plenty of social conservatives, is that they will say, so we were right. So gay marriage was wrong. So gay rights was wrong. So pushing for the rights of atheists and a separation of church and state, that was wrong. The old church ladies from the 1990s must have been right. No, they were wrong. But simultaneously, yes, sadly, slippery slopes I do think exists. Something that we're going to have to learn to do is how to draw a line. How to draw a line and how to be adults and how to come together and make a consensus on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And the problem with the internet and the problem with these two culture wars that we've experienced over the last 20 years is that there's been very, very little of that. It's been a lot of partisanship, a lot of fighting. And so on one end, you'll have the far right go absolutely berserk and say, we were right. With gay marriage, it leads to gender reassignment surgery. No. And on the other hand, you have the far left looking to just degrade everything in our society in the name of what they call progress. Well, it's annoying.
There was another push though. Okay, the argument for LGBTQ plus rights was basically let me be me and let me live my life, and that has a counter argument, right? That argument has a counter argument because you only get to be you and live your life as you see fit, as long as you're not doing anything bad to other people. So there's a counter argument there, right? So if you take the let me be me argument, you don't take it to the extreme, the stupid, because there's a counter push to that. And when you're talking about gender reassignment for 4-year-olds, that's child abuse, okay? If somebody normally would propose gender reassignment surgery for a 4-year-old, that would be considered child abuse. Push back would stop that from happening. And so I would say the answer to the question is no. The LGBT rights the LGBTQ rights movement did not inevitably lead to things like gender reassignment surgery, but the combination of that movement plus wokeism did.
Yeah.
Because wokeism took away that counter. Wokeism took away that gender reassignment for 4-year-olds is child abuse and replaced it with, you go girl, we're behind you. We will never stand you in a corner and say, you're fucking up, you're being stupid, you need to sit down and shut up, because that's violence if we do that now. So now this whole pushback, the societal pushback against the crazy, against the extremism, which did well. Okay, it did well. Until wokeism came, and now we're talking about the again, helicopter parenting. Can't tell somebody no, And
So,
now we've
so,
got gender
so it's not really,
reassignment.
it's not the minorities, it's the cheerleaders of the minorities. It's the
Yeah.
cheerleaders. They're
The bystanders.
enticing issues here because to feed that, we've sort of established that these sort of people probably don't have their own, I don't want to go extreme and say their own life, but it's a big thing. They want to wear their underwear on the outside. They want to be heroes. So they, sorry for the analogy there. Sorry, Superman, but
Thanks for the visualization, though.
So
Oh my God.
so you get that sort of situation, and you get what exactly Dave has mentioned. It's a child abuse, because we always condemn. You remember that Dawkins quote about child abuse by indoctrinating children to be religious. You know, a Muslim, a 2 years old Muslim child, a 2 years old Protestant child, and same. I think it's exactly in the same league, and I think science needs to prevail. The public need to shut up. They need maybe to make some sort of all right, now let's start the conversation. We think that this is the case, but the ultimate decision for these sort of things need to be scientifically based. I think it's got to be that. Otherwise, it's mayhem.
And I got to say, Dave, you are right about wokeism and how, you know, the start of the mission of the LGBT movement is something that I absolutely was on board with. That's why I was in the Gay Straight Alliance. But then wokeism came in and screwed it all up. I saw the beginnings of it in the GSA, but I still believed in the core mission, so I stayed. And I thought, those people will grow up. And the same issue we saw with atheism, right? New atheism was a product of 9/11. We were proudly critiquing Islam. We were proudly critiquing the problem with Islam and the problem with how they don't like women's rights. They don't like gay rights. They don't like any of these problems. So we were on the attack. We were doing a lot of great stuff. And then wokeism came in and said, oh, if you criticize Islam, you're a bigot. You're a racist. You're an Islamophobe. And we got to stop that right there. So it stopped the atheist movement in its tracks as well, sadly. So I think it's the same combination, and it's those victims, these people who call themselves victims and who say, don't you want to get on board the train of progress? You know, what we're doing now is the train of progress, and if you don't get on board the train, you're going to be left behind, bigot.
I mean, Thomas, I mean, there's a voice of an LGBTQ plus member, and actually, I'm in love with the second. I mean, have a read of this, and the second sentence. I'm in love with it because this is
I like it too.
Such a great thing. I mean, imagine you're a heterosexual, and that is the facade of your personality. You go around parading, you know, your heterosexuality, and it's a thing. You can be identified in the right context, you know, around that. But you're everything else. You've got your political views. You like your sport. You're so many. You're a multifaceted person. It's so poor of a human being to define themselves in just one area that they probably have not chosen to do. You know, we always say we want to let go of the things we've inherited because we've got no hand in them. Let's be proud of the things we achieve in our own lives, because hey, free will doesn't exist after all.
I do love that comment, and I totally agree. The vast majority of people who are LGBT in the United States and across the world do want to live their lives in peace. It's why the gay rights movement was so effective later in the 20th century and going into 2015 with Oberfell v. Hodges. And I feel bad. I actually feel bad for you, whoever Keto and Crime person who wrote this, because now the movement, I would argue that the LGBT movement now is not even representing the vast majority of LGBT people. Same with what remains of the atheist movement, apart from Atheists for Liberty and apart from a few other organizations. There really isn't, aren't many big voices in atheism and acceptable atheism representing the vast majority of normal, sane atheists left and right.
Well, it's because both the atheist movement and the gay movement won. We
in many respects, they did.
Equality. I mean, I mean, look at we did it. Right?
They won the left.
Is normal. Homosexuality is normal. Gay marriage is legal. You know, we did it. And hi, Tracy. And it's and so now when you've got a movement and you've won, what do? Well, you find out more places to go.
Yeah.
And that's where they went to social justice, and that's where the LGBT movement has moved into trans issues, to the extreme trans issues where they are now. I'm reminded of a tweet that I saw regarding the new pride flag. I don't know if you saw it. It's got like a triangle and stripes going in all different directions. And one of the best comments was, as a member of the community, the original flag used to include me. This one specifically doesn't, because they were in this place where that flag included everybody but her. I'm just thinking about how the movement is just going so far from what it was, and of course, I guess it's natural, right? Because these people are activists. You don't want to say, we're done, we're yay us, and then go home and not be an activist anymore. You want to still have a cause.
Yeah, but
I think that's what they're just doing.
But eventually, I mean, like the atheist movement, it's going to keep going until it becomes well accepted. It becomes the norm. You got a president in the U.S. in the office at some point who's an atheist, and it's not a big deal. And once this is achieved, and that equilibrium that gets achieved, you got to stop being an activist and maybe become more of a thinker. You start thinking about the blurred areas. We all
find
know
another cause, or
Yeah.
find another cause that needs to be done. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, and trying to change the idea that sex is binary is not important.
No.
It's not. Let's put our effort into, trans women are women, but they're different kinds of women than cis women. Trans women and women can both be women, but they're different kinds. That's why they have different words. They have different attributes. They should be able to.
David, activism is tiring, though. It is tiring. It takes a lot of energy, and you get to a point. You reach our generation, maybe. I probably belong to same generation as David. At some point, you run out of voice, and and all what you do maybe is just engaging discussions over a beer, and you go home.
You know what? That's pretty much where I am. That's pretty much where I am. I'm beaten down. I did my stint. I was an activist for about 25 years, and now I'm still an activist. I'm helping Thomas where I can, because I feel strongly that his mission is a good one and that his mission is important. But I'm exhausted, and again, I got beaten down real hard and twice, and I don't want to do it anymore. Right? One thing that happens when you're canceled. You never ever want to be canceled again. Right? You never ever want to be canceled again. So it's. I think I completely identify with that, Hanney. I'm selling insurance now.
It is, but you obviously you're an advisor to Thomas's organization, and I think it's a good place to be. You're sort of helping the next generation of activists, and maybe learn from our own mistakes.
That's exactly what, because it's important. It's important. So yeah, I'm doing what I can, but I gotta concentrate on building a retirement for myself now.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And activism looks different. Back then we used to wear torn T-shirts and stuff, and these days they're in ties and suits. So good to see. There's a bit of an evolution.
And let's
Dude,
stay in ties and suits.
I got a full of suits here.
No, I'm probably referring to myself.
I will say this. Let's. One other thing I think I will say. I think I said this last time I was on your show, Hanney. Let's stay in ties and suits this time, because there was a little bit of too much unprofessionalism, I will say, in atheism. There was a little bit of a nerdy unprofessionalism there. We got to dress up a little bit more, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything but socks and sandals.
Of course, you're the Aussie. Of course, you're going to say that, Mr. Relaxed, Mr. Can travel anywhere and have fun anywhere.
Yeah.
We're in a lockdown at the moment in Melbourne, Victoria. We can't go anywhere.
Ridiculous, by the way.
I
I
shout out to
sympathize with
Batman
you
here
and all Australians.
Yeah, well, it's tough at the moment. Okay, I'm gonna end up with one last point, and maybe we wrap up in 5 minutes. Um, so we talked about sort of racism, we talked about gender, we talked about women, and the last point I want to bring up is a bit of a fun point because it's very unique to the United States. You know, other nations look at the United States and it's to do with the First Amendment, you know, and guns. Um, Recently, there was a picture of you guys holding guns. It was a shooting range. It was fun day, but you have been completely attacked by, you know. Oh well, it all makes sense now. You guys are white. You're right wing, and you're holding guns. It's are you voting for Trump next when he next appears?
I didn't vote for Trump, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm not white. I'm Ashkenazi Jew. And I like guns, and I'm armed to the teeth, and I'm glad about it. And I think the Second Amendment is important, especially in the current times. And I also think that you can go out to a shooting range and still be liberal, like I am. I think you can go out to a shooting range with your friends and shoot guns for fun and have it not be a political statement and not be a negative statement to anything. I've been shooting since I was a child. I'm good at it, and I like it a lot. And, I think we were talking about tribalism, right? We were talking about tribalism, and shooting guns has been adopted by the tribes as a right side thing.
Yeah.
And so it's asinine. I was a competitive shooter when I was younger. It's asinine that I can't go to the range and see if I can fire off a few and see how good I still am and not be called a racist.
So I'll add on a little bit here. So Dave mentioned a little bit of his background and his affiliation, then went to talking about how he felt. So I pretty much am on the right. I personally, this is my personal political views. I did vote for former President Trump in the 2020 election. And notice how Dave and I can be in the same room and shoot guns together. So I'll give some context. Atheist for Liberty, the Atheist for Liberty team, they were at Freedom Fest. It's basically the largest gathering of libertarians in the country, the Libertarian CPAC, I guess you could call it. We were there in Rapid City, South Dakota. And as we were packing up the booth and going to the UPS store and shipping everything off, a few people suggested going to a shooting range. So I'm a member of the NRA, and I'm thinking of actually getting a Gun Owners of America membership too. But actually, up until that point, I never shot a gun. On the Atheist for Liberty website, it mentions my NRA membership in my bio just to talk about who I am personally, but I never shot a gun ever. And Dave was very surprised about that. So when we went to the shooting range, this awesome shooting range in South Dakota, Dave paid. He spent his own money for me to get pistol training, which was awesome. And I developed even more of a respect for firearms, the usage of it, and the professionals who taught me about it. We went out on the range. We got to shoot various different kinds of guns. South Dakota has different gun laws, so we got to shoot pistols, we got to shoot shotguns, we got to shoot rifles, we got to shoot fully automatic machine guns. Again, on the range in a safe, regulated environment. We had Michael Trollin, our board chairman, shooting off a 50 cal. It was really cool.
It was awesome.
I'll release some of the footage one day. We got it all on footage. Maybe I'll release some of it to you, Hanney, and you can trigger some of our critics here. But Dave and myself and others members of the AFL team, we posted some pictures of us at the range. And I remember in that thread, I was actually defending Dave a little bit in the comments section of that thread. And there were some old friends of mine from the atheist community, so-called good friends of Tom, good free thinkers, people that are able to, we're enlightened people. I got unfriended by numerous people. One of them called me basically a borderline school shooter for being in that photo, or alleged. I don't want to say that in 100% certainty, but basically alleged.
I've just realized
that's what I'm going to become. Yeah. Just because I was holding an M1 Garand, what General Patton calls the greatest battle implement of all time. in a photo with my friends and colleagues together, having fun in a safe environment. Various different political views in that room, but how dare we simply hold firearms, a right that we are guaranteed with the Second Amendment? It's something that we hold very dear as Americans, liberal and conservative alike. So it was just asinine, and it's just another example of how crazy the atheist community has gone. It really used to be this politically neutral new atheist movement that pushed for one particular agenda that we were all on board with, but us holding guns, that's a little too much. How is that a little too much, guys? You only knew me for standing up for secularism and atheism, but I hold the greatest battle implement ever designed, stated by Patton, and all of a sudden, what, I'm school shooter material now? Let's grow the hell up. Let's grow the hell up. I had a fun time. It was awesome. And these so-called enlightened, and a lot of these people who criticize me, they were of the baby boomer generation. They were of the Gen X generation. These are the adults, right? I'm the kid. These are the adults.
Some of them are veterans, too.
Some of them are
veterans.
Yeah. Grow the fuck up. Grow up, you babies. You people are the babies. I'm the kid. I'm the kid that you people supported. Oh, look at Thomas. He's such a cool kid. Look at him. He's in high school and college. Oh, but he's school shooter material when he holds an M1 Garand in a safe shooting range. Grow up, you so-called free-thinking assholes. Really? What a fucking waste of time I spent with some of these people if I knew they were going to end up like this.
It's just the one thing that I mean, from an outsider, obviously, you know, an Aussie, it's sort of down under. It's just we see these sort of scenes, and what comes to mind from international point of view, because obviously you guys, it's inside. This is a right. This is in your constitution. It's all sort of sorted. But the world sees this, and especially in the context of the mass shootings, and they go, why would a country like the US continue to have this ruling? Despite all the things that happen, do they need to be watered down? Do they need to be looked at, sort of? Because I understand that you can actually, whether it's a myth or not, you correct me here, you can go to Walmart and buy a gun.
Well, I think it's a little more nuanced than just going to Walmart and buying a gun. I know Walmart actually changed its policies recently, I think a few years ago, where you can't buy guns at Walmart anymore. But to answer your question, I think it's just a part of American culture. If you go back to American history, we were basically a nation of farmers from different little confederations at the time. We were very, very agrarian. And when we had to face off against the British Empire and fighting for our independence, the main forces that we could really muster, with the exception of the French, were militia, farmers who had their guns and were willing to defend themselves in their home and fight for liberty and independence back in from the 1770s to the early 1780s. And that kind of stuck in our culture for a very, very, very long time, and continues to stay towards this day. It's something that we've really taken for granted for all these years, while other countries, even other Anglo originating countries, they might not have that culture as much as we do. So I would argue that it's more of just a cultural phenomenon. And even in blue states, in plenty of rural areas in blue states especially, it is seen as a very, very weird thing to be very, very anti-gun. Bernie Sanders, for instance, even though everyone sees him as very, very progressive, and believe me, he is very, very progressive, he actually fought for, when he was representing a lot of people in Vermont, gun rights, because he was representing a very rural area where, in the culture of the state of Vermont, it was a very gun-loving culture, and you can apply that to blue states and red states alike.
And there is one more caveat I'd like to throw in there, Hanney. Yeah, you can get a gun at Walmart, but you can't get a gun anywhere without going through a federal background check. It's not like you can go into Walmart and buy a gun and walk out of Walmart right then and there with a gun. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I want to make it clear to everybody, yeah, you can buy guns at Walmart, but you got to go through a background check. You don't get a gun in this country without going through a federal background check. So it takes just as long to buy a gun through Walmart as it does to buy a gun through any sort of gun store. They just run the permits, and it takes a week to 10 days. And so it's just, I just wanted to make that clear, that buying a gun at Walmart isn't like somehow easy. It's not something you just go in and get a gun and come out.
But if this Second Amendment goes away at some point in a constitutional reform, or would you miss it? Would you care too much if it's gone?
There'll be civil war.
Yeah.
You reckon?
Oh,
We love our guns.
oh yeah. No, if they repeal the no. There will be civil war.
But on what grounds? Why? Why would that be?
Because the Americans who have guns are they're not going to let them go. It's just not going to. The reason that they have guns, the reason we have guns is self-defense. Okay, we have guns because we feel we need guns for self-defense. I don't, and I purchased them legally. And
that's kind of circular now. We're going. The reason we need guns is because
the way that
it's true anyways. It's true anyways. Okay,
yeah,
I am not going to be the person to give up my guns and be unarmed first. Nobody is.
And by the way, Hanney, think about this. When you have the government becoming more woke, when you even have the United States military, the strongest Western enlightened secular military in the world, embracing wokeism within its ranks and within its marketing, people, I would want ways to protect myself at this point too. And also another thing, for people also watching, the way that we see guns is like how senior citizens see Social Security. They don't want that touched one bit. The same applies to Second Amendment here.
I don't want to be unarmed. I'll be the only one unarmed. You want me to be the only one unarmed? Fuck you.
But
guess what?
Okay. Hypothetically, what if everybody disarmed at the same time? So you guaranteed that people are let go.
That would not happen.
No, the criminals would keep the guns, dude.
Imagine.
The criminals would keep the guns. Okay, only the registered, law-abiding people would lose the guns.
So that's what would
all
happen.
The good guys with the guns would lose the guns, and all the bad guys with the guns would keep the guns
because they don't respect the law anyway.
Thing. It's a bad idea.
You think from so as an outsider, I don't live in the U.S. I've lived there for a year or so, growing up. But countries like a country like where I live, where you can't, or you can, but it's very rare. But you look at the numbers and you say, okay, well, people don't have guns here down under. There are no mass shootings. There's hardly any shooting of any sort. So what gives here? So despite the fact that we don't have guns, as sort of public as in the United States, the number of mass shootings, the number of killing through guns is very, very small. What gives? Why is this the case, and elsewhere?
Well, I mean, you're talking about yes, there are guns, and so there are shootings, but truly the guns don't cause the shootings. Okay, they're just a tool. Yes, the shootings wouldn't happen without the guns, but we have to talk about the real causes of the guns. We have to talk about mental health. We have to talk about security, and we have to talk about the facts, because quite frankly, Hanney, if we were creating this country from scratch, I would be right with you. I would say no guns. Okay. I would absolutely say no guns.
Okay, got you. So,
and if
you're facing to reality then.
And if there were some magical way for you to take all the guns away from all the bad guys that in my opinion, way outnumber the good guys.
Yeah, I can understand this angle. It's almost like
if you could do that, then I would be completely supportive of it.
Hanney, also
because I don't want to be unarmed. I mean, a lot of people would still not want to be unarmed against the government itself. Okay, but I'm not going to take up arms against the U.S. government. If we could magically get rid of all the bad guys with the guns in this country, I'd be for it. But it's not real. What is real is that we've got a history that has built up a huge underground of armed bad people, everywhere from the Yakuza and the mafia down to your street thugs and your penny drug dealers. Everybody's armed. Nobody knows who has those guns. And to say, I mean, I'm going to conceal carry. And to say that I can't, when the bad guys are doing it because it's illegal and that's what they do, I mean, it's insane.
I'll also give another example. So Hanney, you've probably had numerous discussions with a lot of people about radical Islamic terrorism. occurring throughout Europe, occurring throughout the Western world. Imagine you're in a scenario. There's no police, there's no military, there's no authorities that have weapons involved, and you see a jihadist about to attack an innocent group of people, whether they be in the supermarket, at a church, wherever. And you had a concealed firearm. You're a professional. You're trained in managing a pistol and not harming innocent people. And you had the opportunity to stop that person who was going to kill innocent people in the name of their religion. That's how I kind of see things. I've evolved on politics based on my secularism.
You recall the Aussie guy who massacred the guys in the mosque in New Zealand. You've seen the footage. The guy filmed himself on YouTube. If I had a gun at that point, will not hesitate.
Right?
Yes. Between the eyes, he's absolutely. Right.
You're defending your secular country. You're defending people in a secular nation who have freedom of religion from someone with a gun who wants to inflict harm on innocent people. Yes. That's how I kind of evolved on guns.
Yeah.
From a secular,
I mean, there are countries where the policemen are not armed. I mean, in Ireland,
good luck.
And those are hopefully countries where the bad guys aren't armed either. Okay, yeah. I'll bet you dimes to dollars that those countries where the policemen aren't armed don't have a whole lot of guns being run by gangs and thugs, and they're not going up against guns with batons. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a system that builds. It evolves, and the way it evolves, your country has evolved around guns, and it's unrealistic at the moment. It's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah, we have to deal with it, and that means there's going to be gun shootings, and we should fucking do whatever we can to stop that from happening, to identify with it. Yeah. Parents have responsibility to lock their guns away from kids. Gun owners have a lot of stores. Yeah, in a safe. I mean, that's a reasonable thing. I think gun locks are a reasonable thing, not draconian measures. Okay, because I need to be able to defend myself and defend my home, and I will do that. But I think reasonable laws are good, and I certainly think that parents need to be required to keep their guns away from children. I think that's obvious. Yeah. But at the same time, there's no easy fix. I mean, I would love to wave my hand and get rid of all the guns, but even if we pass the most stringent laws, we will only get rid of all the legal guns. And there's so many illegal guns out there that the population would be overrun. I mean, think of all those. Think about all the armed thugs now fighting against an unarmed population. Think about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Think about what's going to happen there, because the population is armed now. Think about what's going to happen against an unarmed population while they're defunding the police, because that's what these people want to do too. Yeah. But think about it.
It is a catch-22.
Shift of power there. That's a big shift in power. Okay. Yes. There's just no good way to do that.
Yeah. Obviously, Sandaris, that's not the argument. You probably have misunderstood us.
I cited it as an example of a little situation. He talks about.
That's what he does.
Yeah.
Just
no, but that's all right. I mean,
get used to it.
I am trying to bring him to. I mean, I've noticed that the sort of the individual, and I want us to rise above the individual things. You know, big ideas. We're talking about ideas that are probably gonna outlast us. We're gonna be all gone, and these issues are gonna be festering. So I want to try to transcend the individual issues and stuff, and hopefully Sandarius will understand. We did not talk about somebody who's suspicious. We're talking about a guy walking around with a machine gun.
That guy's a Muslim. We got to get him. Like, no, what
no,
world
of course
are we
not.
living in here?
I'm an ex-Muslim, by the way, so yeah, I would not do that.
Ridiculous.
All right, folks, I've enjoyed it. As usual, it's been a brilliant chat, and please, you're free to take this video and upload it to your channels if you want to. You're welcome. But as always, when I speak with you, I feel like I'm in a pub somewhere, and I think we should do it once the freaking world open up. Have a beer.
I know you probably won't do more than anyone else. Australians love traveling, and I really pity and I feel really sorry for you and the rest of the Australian people right now.
My wife
for dealing
and I
with
are gagging to go.
Insane draconian policies right now. And we think what we had to deal with in America was awful, and believe me, it was. But what you guys are going through is insane. And it's another reason why there are plenty of people who want to keep their Second Amendment rights. They don't want people telling them what to do. They don't want to be stuck inside. They don't want to be quartered in.
But
They
to be
want
honest
freedom.
with you, I comply because it's the information is coming in is backed up by good scientific evidence. New Zealand.
Well,
has
you're going to
shut down-
follow the law. You're not, someone who's
Yes, yes.
who's going to break the law.
Yeah.
I think the law is ridiculous. I'm not advocating for people, of course, to
Yeah.
to
New
break the law
Zealand
and get in
shut
trouble
down
with
the whole
police.
country for one case. But when you think it's extreme, but one case.
Yeah.
But they spent all last year, a full year, because of Jacinta, their prime minister. They've had one full year of them being completely free, going to pubs and do whatever they want. But what they do is they shut down very quickly for a snap lockdown, 1 week, clear it, then open up again. I don't mind.
Has it been over a week though?
They've only shut down the country about 2 days ago, so I think it's going for.
Oh,
it's a snap.
I heard that this was going on way before 2 days ago, but
no.
You would know more than I do.
No, they've been open up. The economy, you can travel internally, you can do whatever. Even Melbourne, up to a couple of weeks ago, we had very, very good freedom. We had last 5 or 6 months of we can do whatever we wanted, but we're getting about 50 a day in Melbourne. Sydney getting 500 a day, and they've locked down. But I don't mind that because this thing is real and it does kill you. So it's
Well,
it's
I think people need to get vaccinated.
Yes.
I think
Oh,
that's the best way to combat.
99.98% survival rate for somebody like me.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's the solution. Vaccinate the world and get on with it.
Yeah.
I'm done with the mask mandates. I'm done with the lockdown.
I don't worry about it at all. I give zero shits.
You guys are fully vaccinated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we're done.
I'm fully vaccinated. So
and now we're done. And now I'm done with masks, and now I'm done with worrying. And I'm fully vaccinated against the disease against which I have a 99.98% chance of surviving. I'm fine.
Yeah. And at some point, the quality of life matters. Yeah. It's
At a very important point, the quality of life matters. Okay. Yeah. And there's some point when the disease is running at a mortality rate of 5%, 10%, 50%, 15%, that I have the responsibility to other people to protect them. But when the survival rate is 99.98%, and the vaccine's been out for months and months and months, and everybody who wants it can get it, and now it's just a matter of the people who have chosen not to get the vaccine and the tiny amount of people who can't get the vaccine and are susceptible. The responsibility falls to those people to take care of themselves. I'm sorry for all those people who can't take the vaccine, but that's not my problem. Okay. And it's not okay for them to make it my problem. It wasn't my problem when the flu was around and they were immunocompromised. And it's not my problem for COVID's around that they're immunocompromised. If you're immunocompromised, take care of yourself. It's not my problem. It's not my prerogative to take care of you. You take care of you. And if you're not vaccinated, I don't think you're asking me to take care of you. I think that the leftists are saying that it's my responsibility to take care of the unvaccinated, the willfully unvaccinated, which is asinine.
Willfully, that's ridiculous.
If you're willfully unvaccinated, it's on you. You might get sick. You might die. It's your cause. That's you.
Yeah.
You do you. That's not my problem, and it's not my issue to keep you healthy. I'm not going to change my life to keep somebody else healthy.
Who does not want to take the vaccine? Like
who doesn't want to? And I'm not poo-pooing people who don't want to take the vaccine. They can do what they want. I'm not judging them for it. But it is their call and their responsibility, and they're responsible. If you don't get the vaccine and you get sick, it's not my fault, right?
Right.
We can say that. If you don't get the vaccine and you get sick, it's not my fault. Okay. Yes. I am done worrying about. So what we're talking about is this portion of the people who are unable to get the vaccine and are immunocompromised. That's a very small amount of people. I have sympathy for them. I have compassion for them, but it's not right for us to change our country for them. Okay, this is a very small percentage of the population.
But then the responsibility for governments then to accelerate the process. That
Yeah,
these
I mean,
people are
they
willing.
need to be helped. They need to be quarantined. They need to have access to everything that they need to have access to, so that they can live the highest quality of life while we live ours. Okay, but to say that we need to shut down, we vaccinated people need to wear a fucking mask. It's asinine to say that a vaccinated person needs to wear a mask, and it's asinine to say a child needs to wear a mask in school. Yeah. Because my 99.998% survival rate is lower than their survival rate, which is much higher than 99.98% survival for a child.
We're ruining their childhood as a result of this.
We're fucking up children.
2 years of them wearing masks.
Asinine.
Yeah.
I am my brother's keeper thing. If you are susceptible to the disease, you stay home.
Yeah, please stay home.
Take care of yourself. Self-quarantine. If you're susceptible, you stay home. If you're worried, if you're not worried, come out. You do you, but don't push it on us.
Yeah,
this is asinine. You're killing our country.
I want to end up on a light note. The word asinine has been mentioned a lot, and some of my Middle Eastern viewers have been asking about the meaning of the word, and a guy came up with it. So, it's quite easy. That's a creature that has 9 asses.
There you go.
Words of wisdom on which to.
When Americans say words, we're very literal. Very literal.
Words, good.
Words,
good.
Brilliant. Enjoyed every minute of it, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'm sure we'll chat.
Support Atheists for Liberty. Support Atheists for Liberty.
Yes.
So go check out the links below in the description. Go check out the GoFundMe. Check out atheistsforliberty.org. Please support us if you can. We're fighting for you. We're anti-woke. We're pro-secular. We're pro-atheist. We are politically diverse. We have a great organization with a lot of great people. Thank you so much, Hanney, for having me on the program, for having Dave on the program. This was awesome. I'd love us to come on some other time and continue the chat. I bet there's a wide array of issues that we can discuss together. And I'm looking forward to coming on next time. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Thank you very much, David.
Thanks, Hanney. Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.